Here we have Solomon Island, which is the location we were just showing in the video. And this place has been invaded by the Draug, which is, you can see them off in the background here. And the players have been dealing with this situation for quite a few hours now as they play. And they've been sort of wondering, you know, what are the Draug? How did they come to be here? What brought them to this location? And as Martin talked about, dungeons mean more to us than just a place for monsters to live. So this is actually an explanation of the inciting incident of how the Draug came to be in this area. So this is a large part of the puzzle. There's a group here called the Orochi Corporation. The Orochi Corporation have been in the area. There's, you know, the men in black vans who turn up when something's going on that's a bit off the record. And they've been taking a very hands-off approach. They've just been observing events, but they're using the players to do things for their own ends. So we're going to give you an example of a mission taken from one of these guys right now.
All right, guys, just keep in mind that this game is still in development, and these guys clearly need some dental work, but we'll get to that. But right now, the player has received a mission. The first objective of the mission is to pick up the Orochi tactical map, which is located here on the hood of this car. This is the map over the island that they talked about in this cutscene. The Orochi Corporation has located these points of interest and marked them on the player's map, and this will provide to be very useful information later in the dungeon. But right now, we're going to venture forth, and since this is a modern game, set in modern times, we travel in style with kick-ass helicopters.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and load right into the instance now, and this is where we'll spend the majority of our time in this demo. Now, as you guys may know, this is we're Funcom, we're the company that made Age of Conan. We have a reputation for creating fantastic graphics in the MMO space. And with the Secret World, we're taking it even a step further. We have these amazing environments in our engine, huge visual fidelity. You can see the modern day setting is firmly rooted by things like the helicopters, the lights. We have the lighthouse up the top with the light beam going down. We have these amazing effects that we can create in our engine. And it really roots the game in the modern day world. Okay, so in addition to the fact that we're rooting the game through the visuals in the modern day world, we're also doing this through the way that we communicate with the players. So obviously in the real world, players get communication via radio, cell phone, things like that. It's the same here. As players progress through the dungeon, they'll receive information and updates from their pilot, their helicopter pilot, as they go.
So with us here today, we have a group of 5 players that focuses on this different aspect on the combat in Secret World. We have the masked guy with the sledgehammer. He will play the role as a tank this dungeon run. He's brought a lot of armor mitigation and aggro management abilities. The girl in the pink trench coat will function as the healer in this run. She brought a lot of blood magic and will try to keep this group alive. The guy with the assault rifle has brought some high-powered bullet shots. Also brought some AoE grenades and will function as a sort of ranged DPS character with some crowd controlling. The guy on the right is focusing on magic and the elementalist magic, which lets him control fire and shoot fire. The hero character is wielding a sledgehammer, but is focusing more on the high damage output that the hammer provides. So now this group is gonna venture forth and investigate this place.
Alright, so one of the challenges of dungeon design is, how much do we want to annoy players with trash? So we decided that when we were going to make dungeons for the Secret World, we'd make sure that any trash combat they encountered was only there for a reason. So as you can see here, we have a Draug and several zombies. It's a great screenshot. It's fantastic. So we have a Draug and several zombies, and the player is going to go into combat with these guys. And obviously this teaches the players that when they encounter Draug, they encounter zombies. The zombies work for the Draug. In case you don't know what the Draug are, actually this is all tied into the lore with the myths and legends. In the real world, Draug are actually the spirits of drowned Vikings that come back to haunt people. So, and this also ties into our game. All right.
Body of water contains potentially lethal electrical current.
And about teaching players different mechanics. Whenever we do that, it's not only true for this isolated incident, but it's true for the whole game. And whenever players in the Secret World find electricity on water, it means that it's a bad thing, because when they stand in this water, they take a massive amount of damage. They have to stay away from that as they're going to fight this Draug sorceress.
Alright, so another word on Draug females. These guys are the mothers of the Draug race. Their sole purpose in living is actually to reproduce, and what they do is they take zombies, they mutate them, and eventually the zombies turn into Draug themselves.
You can see this this sorceress is protecting herself with this Draug barrier. The players can bring certain effects to counter this magic and remove that barrier. She also summons this thundercloud that the players need to get away from, which provides a particular challenge because of the electrified water. They need to stay away from that and the thundercloud at the same time.
Alright, so the player just earned a skill point. Skill points are used to purchase abilities. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. First, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, again, the level design as we go into this sort of project. We look at all the space in the world and we think, like, you know, it's no point in building a 2D corridor. We have the verticality as well, so we build the game into sort of, you know, using the vertical landscape as well as the horizontal landscape. So we create these great vista points as well, which we'll get to shortly.
Highly volatile biological material. Avoid close proximity.
Again, teaching player different mechanics. If the players linger close to this Draug pod for too long, it will start to pulse and eventually erupt for massive amount of damage and a knockback. But if the players are quick to damage them down before they're able to explode, they're safe and sound.
Alright, so we're climbing again, we're close to the top now. And as we arrive at the top here, you'll see the full scope we can go for in our engine, creating these amazing this war against darkness. It's actually Gaia, the Earth herself, rising up and giving players a bit of an advantage by providing these locations.
Yeah, so this is one of the tools that Gaia or Earth provides the player. It opens up these anima wells. And what that allows the player to do is to access the anima magic, and in particular, this skill wheel. In this skill wheel, we have over 500 unique abilities, and the player can access them all, learn them all, and master them all. Every single cell you see here contains several abilities. In here you find everything from shotguns to assault rifle powers, to swords, to fist weapons, to chaos magic, blood magic, a lot of cool abilities. And what the player learned in the first fight was that ranged characters was at an advantage. They were able to stay away from the water and damage the boss from afar. Now, what he's doing right now is adapting to this. He's removing his hammer abilities and equipping elementalist abilities, where he can nuke and shoot fireballs and send lightning bolts from afar. So, and this is a really important aspect in the secret world. It's adapting to the play style. You're not locked down to a role. You're faced with challenges all the time, but you have to be versatile and figure out a way to overcome that challenge the way you feel like you want to do.
Alright, so now she's equipped herself, she's ready to move on, this time as an elementalist. So we're going to jump ahead now. You see on the map, the map that the player looked at earlier has now become their in-game map. And we have the tactical analysis. We're going to the high biological material concentration. We're jumping ahead, guys, to speed up the presentation, of course. Dungeon takes quite a bit longer, but we're jumping ahead. We're going to check out what that means.
Approaching a major biological threat. Exercise caution.
Alright, so this is the Varangian. Varangian is one of the warrior caste of the Draug. He's leading them in the war effort against the humans on Solomon Island. The name itself, the Varangian, if you were to look that up, you would find out that the Varangians were actually a group of Vikings who crashed into, or were shipwrecked on the coast of Russia over 1,000 years ago, and they ended up fighting as mercenaries in wars there. So it all ties together, and you'll find out how that's connected to the game when we go into further detail during the game.
Yeah, so since this is the first dungeon and the first boss in the secret world, the mechanics of the fight is fairly simple. At random, or not random, but at certain times, the Varangian will wipe his aggro list and charge a random people in the group. At these points, it's really important that the tank is on the ball and uses his taunt abilities to regain control of the fight. Also, from time to time, he submerges himself in the water and summons zombies. Again, the Draug control the zombies. So, and again, when he does this, it's really important that the players damage down the zombies to regain control of the fight. Right now, he's realizing that he's losing the battle, so he's retreating to an area where he feels safer. He's throwing some zombies in the way to slow the players down. The players just need to take those down and follow him and see where he's going.
Alright, so again, just on a note on the world design, like you see that the Varangian here He's created a location for himself. The water within that location is electrified, just like in the first fight. So players have been taught a mechanic earlier in the game, and now they're going to have to remember to use that mechanic again. So the players will need to jump on these containers and use them to keep attacking this guy because he's in his safe zone.
But he has a trick up his sleeve. As you can see here, he also has now the ability to put electricity on these containers. So the players really need to watch out where they're standing, adapt to their surrounding while they're damaging this guy and try to get him down.
Nice. All right, so now we're going to kick it back a little bit, just take a notch of relaxation time and talk a little bit about how we're keeping the puzzles and mystery element of the secret world all the way through the instances as well. So as we go forward here, if you remember in the cutscene, they talked about that it could be an Orochi ship. They didn't want to confirm or deny anything, but it could be an Orochi ship. And here the players have stumbled upon a green glowing crate, which might contain something very useful to them. But when they attempt to open it, they discover that there's a code locking it off, right? And they require a code. So we're asking players to think outside the box, just like they did in the outside world. But in this case, we're literally asking them to think outside the box, because on the edge of the container is a shipment number, right? And players can go to a website external to the game, look up that shipping number, find out what was inside that container, and then find out the code that they can use to unlock that chest in the game. And we're not going to spoil what's inside the chest because we think it's a cool surprise for our players later on. But now we're going to move on from this point. Back to the action. All right, so this is we've been moving through this progressively towards the aberrant psychic signature, and we're going to move forward and try to find out what that is. Here we are in the shadow of the Polaris itself, right at the base of the ship, and the zombies in this area, it's worth pointing out, they're the former crew of the Polaris. These guys were manning the ship when it disappeared, and the Draug resurrected them and used them to bring the ship to this coastline. So as we move now, we're going to progress deeper into the belly of the beast. Martin's going to say a few words about progression.
Yeah, because we're really, really excited about the progression in this game, because there's two forms of progression. You have the vertical progression and the horizontal progression. The vertical progression comes in forms of getting better items. Getting better items make you stronger. They make you better at doing damage, better at healing, better at crowd controlling, better at mitigating armor. But in addition to that, we have the horizontal progression. The horizontal progression is that getting all the skills. And mastering all of these skills doesn't necessarily make you stronger, but you're more versatile. Whenever you're faced with a challenge, you have more options of how to overcome that challenge.
All right, so we're getting close to the source of the psychic signature now, and we're going to take a look at what that is. Alright, so this is the primordial dweller. This is the source of the signature. This is also the mastermind behind the invasion of Solomon Island that the players have been trying to find the answers about. And what the players need to do here is use every single element that they've learned about throughout the dungeon comes back in this fight here, and they'll need to use everything that they've learned.
Yeah, so as you guys saw earlier, he's protected in this magical barrier that the players need to deal with. In addition to that, he spawns this poisonous ink on the ground that erupts that the players need to stay away from. Here you also meet the mobile pod carriers, where they actually have Draug pods mounted to zombies, and they will follow the players around. And if the players don't deal with them, they will explode next to them, deal a lot of damage, and knock them back. The best way to do this, either by doing lots of damage quickly, or crowd control them, keep them away from the player. In addition to this, he also has these small octopods that will spawn in packs of 3 and 4. And same with these guys, you really need to damage them down quickly or crowd control them as you're doing damage to the boss in order to be successful.
As you can see, it gets pretty chaotic. Stuff going everywhere. Alright. So good work, team. You took down the primordial dweller. Yep. So we managed to finish that fight, and now it's time to head out back into our helicopter and head back to safety.
Anomaly. Large etheric waste is converging on extraction point.
And I'm pretty sure